live. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I am trying out the captioning system that I cobbled together by showing an Otter window over my window. So hopefully this will help people out who prefer to read some captions. They are being auto-generated, so I apologize if at any point they are somewhat inaccurate. But it is office hours. Ask me anything. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit of news today. I have a few questions that have already come in. And of course, you are all welcome to ask questions. I'm happy to take questions and comments as we go. I do this every Tuesday, and please subscribe to the YouTube version. That's if you go to deltacx.tv, and I know the captioning might not get that. All right, that was pretty close without the space. Deltacx.tv will redirect you to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It's not monetized, there aren't any ads, but YouTube has less lag, and they're much better about telling you that I am live. So a couple of updates, and then I'm going to get into some questions that have already been sent. And I'm going to keep deleting and reporting people who come by just to plug their websites. And okay, so let's talk about something that happened, I think today, maybe yesterday, which was famous godfather of UX, Don Norman, posted that he will be spending roughly the next year or so with a team of dozens, if not hundreds, of UX experts, and he is going to come up with a curriculum for UX education. So he had a 2010 article that UX education was broken, and now he's been writing about this again. You can find it by Googling it. Google JND. So that's letter J like Jupiter, N like Nancy, D like David, and then the words changing design education 21st century, and for 21st put 21ST. Then you'll find his page, and you'll find a link to the semi-academic paper that he's been writing. I only skimmed it, but it's definitely something that you guys want to take a look at, because Don Norman, I mean, for them, who doesn't like and respect Don Norman? So when Don Norman is willing to come out and say UX education is so broken that I'm going to put together a committee of people and I'm going to work on what the right curriculum is, then hopefully it's going to be fixed and improved, and I'm certainly for that. I will still be working on some education ideas of my own, but certainly when Don Norman comes out with his curriculum, I imagine it will be the best and hopefully most impartial and most complete. I did skim his article and his paper, and I saw that he also talks about some of the dangers of design thinking. That design thinking sounds good and can be good and has been good for evangelizing design, but that it has also suffered from making people think that UX work is just a very shallow, mechanical, fill out a form type of thing. So you read it, you see what you think. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. So load it up with your questions and ideas, and I'm going to give you a couple of questions that I've received and start with those. Last week we ran out of time, but Rajesh had a question, and I copied and pasted it, and I will do my best to answer what he asked. If there is a mobile platform and the client wants to redesign it because of bad usability and performance issues, and imagine that the client is a big giant in transportation and mobility, what are the UX best practices that a UX team should follow in order to come up with an easy and user-friendly app? Great question. Certainly not a short answer, but really the best answer is to follow the user-centered design process without skimping, especially when I see these redesigns like, wow, we built something and it's failing. It's not working. At that point, it doesn't make sense for any company to decide to skimp, to decide to do half of a process, to decide that, maybe we don't need too much research, to decide, oh, we know our customers and we know what they want. It really doesn't make much sense. You've already shown that you're feeling the pain, and whatever this is really broken, so that you're not still putting band-aids on it. Now you want it redone. So we have to consider that the best path is the full path without skimping. This is going to be a long project because we're going to need to do it right. We need to learn who all of these different audiences are for transportation and mobility. We have to interview them. We might do listening labs. We should do observational research. Tough right now with coronavirus, but eventually we'll get back to in-person UX studies, and we want to do more of those. That's going to give us great information. And we could look at competitors, but sometimes competitors are getting it wrong. And we got to the disastrous point we're at now because we were copying them. So we need to do our own fresh research. We need to have the best idea of who our customers are, who our potential customers are, and what can we build that's really going to work for them. And to me, the core of that is going to be research. Lots and lots and lots of research, maybe even dozens or hundreds of hours of research. Yes, everybody thinks they want projects to go fast and they want them to be lean and they want to use fancy buzzwords, but we can't sacrifice anymore. We can't try to superimpose a sprint or a lean whatever onto thoroughness of process. There's nothing in Agile that says skimp on stuff. Forget about the quality of stuff, just do the fastest thing you can. And if you look at a lot of original lean, Toyota's approach to lean, it doesn't say that either. The lean startup might say that a little bit, and that's mostly because startups are afraid of not being the first to market. They're afraid of not getting those investors, and so they're in a little bit of a speed contest. But the rest of us at the companies where we work, it's more important to do this right, especially if we're already dealing with a piece of software or an app or a system that is severely broken, and we know that it's beyond putting on band aids. That would be my answer for that. And of course, proper user centered design throughout, proper information architecture, research work testing, proper interaction design, prototyping, rounds and rounds of testing with your real and archetypal customers. So that would be what I would suggest. I'm going to consider that answered, at least based on my opinion. If you have any follow-up questions or comments, please place them in the YouTube chat, which I'm monitoring. Hello, 3 people there, as well as the LinkedIn chat, which I'm also monitoring. Hello, 9 or 10 people there. This is office hours. Ask me anything, and you are welcome to ask me anything. In fact, let me change the graphic on the screen to the official secret URL. Let's see if this is the right button. Yeah, this is the URL that you can use if you would like to send an anonymous question to me. That is deltacx.link/AMA, like ask me anything. And that will send me an email with an anonymous question so that if you want to talk about your job or something sensitive, you can ask it without any of us knowing who you are. So let's take a look at another question that I got. And I won't say who this is in case this person wants to be anonymous. This person says, I was reading that when deciding between 2 or 3 designs, you shouldn't ask people their preference because they'll struggle to rationalize a reason when there may be, in fact, no difference. So, when asked, I generally say A/B testing, but I'm not sure if that's the right answer. So, let me give my opinion on that. If I have more than one design that I think is a potential winner or I think has aspects of goodness to it, I might user test, UX test, 2, maybe 3, usually 2, usually not more than 2, but hypothetically could be 3, but you don't want to test 8. And what I do is I just run people through the same tasks in each of the different designs. So you're trying to buy this thing and put it in your cart, or you're trying to understand the difference between these products, or you're trying to sign up for this system, whatever it is. I just give people the same tasks in each of the different designs, and then I just interpret the results. I don't ask people, I've seen people say, like, which one did you prefer? And I think it's not too terrible to ask people which one they prefer, but again, they might not know why. So I think you have to take why with a little bit of a grain of salt and know that these people are kind of guessing, and some might not tell the truth because they might worry that they hurt someone's feelings if they say they didn't like one of them. So I've seen it done. I did a project many years ago for an agency, and we ended up with two versions. There was the version I designed, and then there was the version that the agency. Not the agency was on my side. The client claimed they preferred this other one. And so what ended up I thought they were just going to throw mine away. But when I was watching live testing, what I found was they actually ran people through the client's preferred one, same tasks, and then they circled back and showed them my original one and asked them to run through the same tasks. And it was interesting because many people volunteered when using mine, like, "Oh, why didn't you show me this one first? This one is much easier." Or, "Oh, I like this one better." So I think in some cases, if you are showing the same person the varying designs, you might not even have to ask which one did you like better. They might volunteer it. And also, if you're good at watching people's expressions, hearing their tone of voice, maybe body language or other things, you might be able to tell which one they prefer from things that they say or adjectives that they use. They might say, "Well, this one seemed a little faster. This one seemed a little easier." Now, again, the second one is usually a little bit biased because now that they've done the first one, they have a sense of what this product is and they have a little bit of information that primes them for the second. So the best thing to do is to test it in different order. So again, try sometimes design number one is first, sometimes design number one is second, and that way you can try to remove some of the bias of people being primed for it. I've got a question coming in here from Jason Gutierrez Parra. Hello, Jason, wherever you are. And I also saw that an anonymous question came in, and I'll check that one in a moment. So Jason says, what could be good advice when you want to study as a career? I assume UX as a career, and not in your country. What if countries need a bachelor degree to get a work visa? Thank you. Okay. So here's some of my advice right now on degrees. I think degrees can look good. Some jobs are impressed by them. But as I was saying earlier, UX education is broken on all levels. It's not just the boot camps and the trade schools that I'm always complaining about. There's also colleges and universities that are not doing a good job teaching UX. I've interviewed and spoken to some of those people, and I have found that even they will say, "Yeah, I did a 2 years master's degree and I'm not really prepared to do UX work. I'm not sure I know what I'm doing," or sometimes I hear my program was very academic. So, thing one, Jason, make sure you know why you're getting that degree. If you're getting that degree so that you can try to apply for a work visa, knowing that some countries favor people with higher level degrees, also know that in if you have a bachelor's degree in anything, you can go right into a master's in UX. And again, some of these programs are good and many of them are not. And unfortunately, the good ones are really expensive. So you might want, if you have a bachelor's in anything, you might want to jump into the master's in UX for no other reason than it would look good on a visa application, that you have a higher level degree. I have found that many bachelor's in UX and many master's in UX, in some cases, are teaching the identical thing. I've seen a couple of masters in UX related topics, and chapter one was, what is UX? What is human-centered design? What are some jobs that you could have in UX? Clearly, that doesn't feel very mastery level. That feels very beginner level. But a lot of these degrees told me that they assume that the people studying are job transition people. And so, because they are transitioning into a UX career, someone decided even a master's degree should begin at the beginning. Excuse me. So, Jason, my suggestion, and you're welcome to give me some follow up information or a follow up question, but I would say if you feel like you can only get that job by showing that advanced degree, you should probably look at master's degrees, many of which will take you 2 years full time and longer if you do them part time while working. If you can get the work visa another way, then look at that. There are some jobs who would want to hire you just because you look great and because they're open to people moving, or maybe even they're paying for people moving. So I would say, um, look at your options. You might not need to have the advanced degree for the work visa if you can find a company that will sponsor you for whatever this country is. And just apply for jobs and speak to recruiters, speak to hiring managers, and see if they will help you get to the country or countries you'd like to get to. I'm not an expert on that, even though I have moved countries, but I've never had another. Company get me a work visa, and I do not have a master's degree, so I don't look like very much in that department. So, Jason, I hope that helps. Before I answer Akeem's question, let's answer the one that came in anonymously. Oh, it's the same one. Okay, thank you, Jason. I got your question. Hopefully that helps, and let me know if you have a follow up question or anything like that. So feel free to ask it here in LinkedIn, or I'm also checking the YouTube chat if anybody has any questions there. Akeem asks, can you recommend any good books on UX? Akeem, not always. I think right now there are kind of more garbagey books than great books, but of course there are the books that have lasted many years that many people would recommend. There's, of course, Don Norman's The Design of Everyday Things. There's Don't Make Me Think. Everyone loves that one. I can't help but recommend my own book, which is a bit of a selfish plug, but my book, Delta CX, I like it. You might too. I think the question would be, what are you looking to learn about UX? Is it just UX in general, or is there a particular aspect or discipline or subspecialty of UX that interests you? But I would have to say, I do not do a lot of book reading. I know that's a shame. I'm probably missing out on some good stuff, but I read lots of articles and things that come across LinkedIn, and so I'm somewhat aware, but I am not always the person who knows all of the best books. So I might have to check on that for you and get back to you. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, so you guys are welcome to ask any questions that you have. You can ask them anonymously at this link, and that will come in as an email to me, or you can ask them right here in the LinkedIn chat room or the YouTube chat room. We've got 5 people watching in YouTube, and we've got 5 people watching in LinkedIn. Thanks to everybody joining today. I do this every Tuesday at 6:15 p.m. Italy time, which is a little bit funky right now because North America had daylight savings time. Italy hasn't had daylight savings time yet, so we're 5 hours apart right now. And then in a few weeks, we will be 6 hours apart again if you are that's if you're on the east coast of like America or Canada. So, yes, thanks, Akeem. Start with those books, and definitely anything written by Don Norman is always a winner. He really comes from that heavy psychology background. I think anything you can learn about cognitive psychology is possibly a book worth reading, since so much of UX has a foundation in cognitive psychology and how people think and behave. How do you guys like the captions, by the way? Captions, good, bad, accurate? I'm not looking at them. So tell me what you think of the captions. It's a little free thing that I cobbled together over the weekend because I'm hoping this will help. Akeem, I'm sorry it didn't get your name correct. I'm looking at that now. Let's see if we have any other questions. Plexus says Rosenfeld has a great series of UX books. I'm a little hot and cold on Rosenfeld only because I read their page on about their process of how books are written and published, and it made me feel a little yucky. So if Rosenfeld books are good, I have to admit I haven't seen them. Akeem, one book I recommend strongly against is Lean UX. Lean UX is a flaming pile of garbage, and I do not recommend reading it. I believe that UX can be lean and should be lean, but using Toyota's principles and not the Lean UX book. So Plexus, our good friend over in the YouTube channel, says Rosenfeld books. So check those out. I don't think I've read any of them, I have to admit. So we'll go with what Plexus says. Give them a try. Let's see if we have any. We don't have any other questions right now, and I think I answered all of the ones that were queued up from people ahead of time. So this is office hours. Ask me anything. I usually hang around until we run out of questions. So let me know if you have any questions related to CX, UX, your career. This is your free time with me. You know, I get people who message me, usually weekly. Somebody messages me and says, "Oh my gosh, I need your help. I need your help." And they expect my time for free. And I would say that's unfair. So I do charge for my time. I do charge for my coaching. I do charge a discounted rate of 50 American dollars a half hour, but I do charge for my time. I do not charge for this time. So if you have a question that can be answered in public and it's not something like, please review my work, or please fix my resume, or please help me with the actual work I'm doing at my job, then let's try to answer it here so that you can get some free help. So ask your questions or follow-up questions. Excuse me, that was a water break. While I wait for you guys to ask questions, just a reminder that please subscribe on YouTube, because I just think that's, as much as I love LinkedIn Live, I feel like YouTube is doing a better job with these live streams. So please check them out. I'm going to open up my calendar and tell you guys a little bit about what's coming up for the live streams, because I'm doing one almost every weekday this whole month. There's lots of opportunities to get lots of great free content and information from the Delta CX world. Tomorrow is improv comedy. For those who haven't joined before, we all get together in Mural. You don't need a Mural account. And we're going to improvise something silly, just to be silly and funny and not insult anybody. And tomorrow, it starts at 6:30 p.m. Italy time, so check when that is for you. And we're going to, as a team, live improv a really bad UX job description. I think that will be very funny and somewhat cathartic. Um, Also note that on Thursday, we're doing another UX jobs speed dating with mid-level and higher people. And it looks like we have maybe 11 people signed up. So it's going to be a packed hour of fresh faces. I think I only know one person in there. And we're going to interview them, and then we're all going to share it out and hope that people meet them and want to interview them and get to know them. Friday is a can't miss podcast. We rescheduled this one sooner because the topic is just too hot. Remote working. And more importantly, or what's more importantly than that, but also importantly, agile. Remote agile. You know, people love to say, oh, agile demands co-location. We all have to sit within coronavirus distance of each other. But in reality, we don't. So we've got an expert who will come on who will tell us about how Agile and Scrum can be fantastic, even remotely. So it is strike when the iron is hot and the remote work iron is hot. So we're going to be talking about how to set up your remote work universe. Next week, and again, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I'm just waiting for you guys to ask me some questions. So next week, let's see, we have great podcasts scheduled. Monday will be accessibility with Sherry. You don't want to miss that. Tuesday, office hours. Wednesday, speed dating with juniors and newbies. I think we've got 8 or 9 signed up. So that's what's happening in the next 2 weeks for the live podcasts and all the free content I like to give you guys. The stuff that's on YouTube and archived on YouTube does not have any ads. It's not monetized, and I don't have any sponsors. So I just want to make sure you guys know that this is totally free to you. You're welcome to find some way to give me money, but in general, the content is free to you. Just do me a favor and spread the word, especially of the YouTube channel. So this will also be archived there immediately after. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. If Udit is still here, I hope he will tell me how he is feeling. Improv. Oz, I hope you'll join us for improv tomorrow. We're going to make up a really bad UX job description that I know is going to be based on really bad UX job descriptions that we've all seen. And Oz is going to be one of our special guests on an upcoming podcast. He's going to be later in March. He will be March 25, our good friend of the show, Oz. And he's going to be the first in a series I hope to do called Our Customer. Because Oz doesn't come from the UX or CX world. He comes from using the crap that we deliver to him. This poor man, he's a saint. So we're going to be talking to average everyday people, though Oz in many ways is above average. And we're going to get some insights from the customers who struggle with the stuff that we are building. So that'll be a new flavor of the podcast that I hope will be fun and I don't know about controversial, but I think blunt and maybe a little angry and frustrated and and he's right. So I know that the LinkedIn is a good minute and a half behind where I'm speaking now, so that's slow motion. But YouTube, you guys, I think are 30 seconds behind. So if anybody has questions, let me know. I'm going to hang around a little bit more, but you'll be seeing a lot of me. Note that the captions are only going to be when I'm alone. I don't have the captions worked out for guests. So guests will be using our old system until I figure something out. But when I'm doing these alone, I'll make sure that the captions are running and that we make a transcript available later. Because accessibility, as well as people who are newer to English, these are helpful to lots of people for lots of reasons. So, any other questions? It is office hours. Ask me anything. Silence. I'm just reading the captions now. It's fun. So a couple of years ago I spoke at DevOps Days Galway, and they had a live caption person who was remote, but I was standing next to like a giant TV screen that was typing everything I said, even my bad jokes and my wacky stuff. And some poor person somewhere was frantically typing everything I was saying. It wasn't automated like this is. And I found when I looked out at the audience that everybody who was there, I mean, there had to be 200 people there, maybe 300. Every face was looking at the screen. Nobody was looking at me. Now, I'm low ego, so that's okay, but it was a little bit weird because it was like, hey, I'm up here. I'm the speaker. Those are the words I'm saying. And, do you guys find that you're watching the caption? And you're not looking at me. Not that I look so fantastic today, but do you find you're just reading the captions? I'm just curious. Anyway, this is still office hours. Ask me anything. I don't have any new questions from you guys, not even anonymous ones, which you can send in with this link. It will send me a totally anonymous questions. Oh, I'm sorry, Oz. The captioning thing did not do your name justice. Sorry. We'll have to try to teach it. So meanwhile, while I'm going to kill a little bit more time, because I usually try to stay here a half hour to try to answer any questions people have. So we've got 4 more minutes. Since we've got a few minutes and there aren't other questions, I'm just going to give you guys a quick update on what it's like to be in Italy. I am located in Italy. Oh, wait, we've got Plexus. Consider the sharing of work from UX to UI teams. What are your thoughts on sharing PDFs versus sharing source files like Sketch? Plexus, when you say that, do you mean, are you implying that the work is a little bit assembly line, that UX is doing their thing and then UI are are doing their thing, that we're not working from a design system or component library, because if we are, we should have less of an assembly line. I mean, yes, I still like to work in medium fidelity and put the visual design on that later, but I've often found that where we have component libraries or design systems, I'm a little tempted to just do my Axure prototypes. Oh, I don't think it's going to write Axure correctly. You know what I'm saying. Axure prototypes using the components, or using the components is really the end of my sentence. Oh, it says actual prototypes. Okay, you know what I'm saying. So, if I'm giving stuff to a UI designer, I try to give it to them in whatever format they prefer. So if a UI designer says, "Oh, you're working in Axure? I want to work in Axure," then sure, I guess here's my, I wouldn't give them an Axure file. I would use Axure's team function to share the file with them. If I were using Sketch, which I don't use, and they were using Sketch, then I guess I'm giving them my Sketch files. So I think ultimately it depends on how much I trust the visual designer. If I think the visual designer is good at knowing that the UX was done deliberately and with depth and quality and care, and that they're going to take my work and just make it better through good visual design and good accessibility and good branding, then I wouldn't have any trouble giving them my source files and knowing that my work will be made better. When I have worked with people who took my source files and didn't understand that I had done all of that work deliberately, and they thought it was some sort of extremely general guideline and they could make up their own designs, then actually in that case, giving them my source file didn't matter, because they usually went and made their own thing from scratch because they didn't understand that they were supposed to work from my file. So I would say that sharing is caring and collaboration is important, but I would also want to make sure that whoever's that manager has set things up with the team so that the UI people understand that it's their job to apply visual design best practices, accessibility best practices, branding, and not to change the UX or the intention of the interaction design, because then we're going to have conflict, we're going to have bad culture issues. Plexus, am I on the right path for what you were looking to ask me? Am I going in the right direction? And LinkedIn people, if you have any additional questions, please ask. Thank you, Oz. I'm looking forward to it too. This is Ask Me Anything. Well, no, this is Ask Me Anything. Okay, Plexus says, if sharing source files, what about the risk of other teams messing with the wires? That's why I prefer to share PDFs, but sometimes pressure to share source files. I think it also depends on how you're doing your documentation, because at some companies where I've worked, whatever UX delivered still had to go into some sort of shared wiki or knowledge system. So, like, I would have to upload my wires or a link to my prototype in Confluence or something like that, some sort of wiki. And if you've done that, then even if an artist, visual designer, graphic designer goes and changes your wires, or developers try to mess with the wires later, you would still have the documentation to show, wait a minute, this was the design that I passed to you. Why did it end up like this? And also, if there's good collaboration, then nobody is saying, okay, I got the work from UX, I did my stuff on it, okay, that's it, it's done, I've done it, moving on to the next thing. If there's good collaboration there, then there should be a time where the UI designer comes back to UX and says, this is the direction I'm going in, or this is what this looks like when I apply our style guide, component library, design system. Hey, is there anything here that has now changed or been made worse in your interaction design because of something that happened with the visual design? So I think management has to set up a way of working where there are kind of checking back with each other. Very often, when I'm doing interaction design, especially if I want another pair of eyes and if I have a good visual designer on the team, I'm not afraid to bring it to that person and say, hey, from your perspective, take a look at this. I know we do different things in different ways, but take a look at this. And so I think there can be collaboration. Plexus says, also, if you share the source file, the other teams need to use the same app. This can force UX to use specific apps rather than the best app for the job. I completely agree with you. I hate when I get forced into using something just because somebody else down the assembly line later wants it a certain way. I mean, I'll try to adjust my deliverables for what other people want. I do my best to do that rather than say, oh, I'm UX and too bad to everybody. But I think that it's important for each person to use the best thing for the job. And like I hear some people say, oh man, you should really be using Figma. Why are you still using that other thing? And I say, well, I don't know. Can't I do what Figma is doing by me using Axure and then the visual designer connecting with the front end developer and maybe they use Zeppelin, which the captioning probably won't spell right since it's a brand name and not spelled the way the air balloon is spelled. So I think it's important for UX to use their best tools. Engineering would kill us if we made them change some of their tools just because of what we needed to do. So I think this is just about finding some balance and definitely management getting some things in place so that people understand roles, responsibilities, communication, collaboration, and especially between UX and visual design when you have that sort of pseudo handoff or assembly line where to make sure that the UI people understand that UX work isn't a general fluffy guideline. The UI people are supposed to just assign the UI components and the branding and things like that to exactly what was designed. So I hope that helps, and you're welcome to ask any follow-up questions, but that's what I would do. And I would probably also assign your UI person to working on a design system or at least a component library, because that can help get everybody on the same page and can certainly save time later for front-end developers and the UI designers as well, because we don't necessarily need UI designers to take an entire pass at an entire page anymore if the page is made up of these components that we keep reusing. So it's probably a better use of UI person time for them to be able to plug in some of these reusable components based on what the UX interaction design shows, and then for the UI designer to just focus more on some of the random things that pop up on pages, like, oh, we need 2 stock photos on this page. Okay, well, that's not in our design system. They're going to have to choose that from an in the moment understanding of what the stock photos represent. So that's some of my thoughts and ideas there. Any other thoughts or questions? Oh, wow. LinkedIn is 2 minutes behind YouTube. So, LinkedIn people, you are 2 minutes behind what YouTube is hearing me say. Yikes. So, please subscribe. DeltaCX.tv will take you to our LinkedIn, to our YouTube channel where you can subscribe and hit the bell to be notified that we're live. And again, I do tend to go live at least twice a week, sometimes 3 or 4 or more. So please subscribe. Lots of good stuff. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can certainly wind down. You've been watching the sunset on me. I face a window, so I've probably been getting a little bit darker and more mysterious, but that's just me. Let's see. Any other? Okay, no other questions. So I'll just hang out here a couple more minutes, and if there aren't any other questions, I'll wrap up about 30 minutes in. So we've got 3 more minutes just for me to check if anyone has a question. Sorry, just watching the captions. You guys just watching the captions, or is it just me? It's like, oh, words. Words are moving. Excuse me. That is an email, but it is not a question. So let's see if there's any other questions. This is Office Hours. Ask me anything. I will be doing this again every Tuesday. So please drop by every Tuesday to ask your questions or hear some answers. You can also catch this in the Office Hours playlist over at our YouTube channel, which you can find at deltacx.tv. Oh, we're getting a question, anonymous question, and it says, in your experience, how important has UX writing been to a product's design? Super question. Thank you so much for asking that. I don't usually get questions about writing. And it's funny because I've been talking about this to another colleague on private messages in LinkedIn. And I think UX writing is tremendously important. And in fact, we had a bit of an episode this weekend with a client. The client uh, the client sent their text for their website that they had someone else write, and I was quite unhappy with the text. It lacked brand voice. It sounded very cold and clinical for something that should have been warm and caring and empathetic, or empathic. You guys tell me. And I went back to the client and I said, I'm concerned about your text. It's really quite cold and it doesn't match the brand voice because we start our clients with a little branding exercise. So we had a bunch of adjectives of what the client wanted their brand to be, and the writing didn't match that. And so I thought that that was. Really lacking, and I think that can sometimes be one of the differences between writing and UX writing, because I think there are a lot of great writers out there, and it's not that some of them are bad at brand voice, but I think some of them are used to maybe more clinical things or more business things, or some of them are used to long form. What's the longest thing I can write here? And I always feel like UX is about the economy of words. Sure, there's a time and a place for long articles. I write plenty of them. But when I think about the writing on a website, app, system, SaaS, it's so important for that writing to be concise and immediately meaningful. Plus, brand voice. So if your brand voice is warm, caring, maybe a little bit fun or clever, it's got to sound like that. And if it doesn't, someone should point it out and reject it, as I did. Ultimately, the client said, put it in for now as a placeholder and he might fix it later. And I was like, look, you don't have to pay me to fix it. Just pay somebody. Pay somebody to fix this because I really think this text could work against you badly. And I laid out my reasons why. So let's see. Marcella, friend of the show, says, what are top skills you recommend junior UX people learn to stand out in a job search? Marcella, that is a deep question because obviously, in many cases, more junior UX people, especially those really brand new, in some cases, they've learned very, very little. So I'm not even up to the point where I'm worried about are they standing out. I still have the low standard of did they even learn to do anything in UX well or correctly or with depth or quality. So I'm a little bit less concerned about if they're standing out. Also, from the podcast that we did where hiring managers talked about why they often don't like the portfolios that come from boot camp graduates, we talked about how many UX jobs are mission critical, and even people who are looking for less experienced people, which is usually just to pay less, not because they love people with very little experience. It's that They still have mission critical work. They still want people to hit the ground running and be able to do their job. And so I think, forget about standing out. You'd probably stand out if you were a portfolio or interview or something that looked like you could do the job. I think we're starting with those low standards of, can this person even do the job? And so many resumes from those very new to UX, not just the resumes, it's really the portfolio. The portfolios tend to tell the story, I don't get UX, I can't do UX. So I'm more worried about that than um, are you standing out. Step one, be able to freaking do the work. Step two, find some way to stand out. If you want to talk about standing out, probably go watch our podcast on storytelling, as how you tell your story on your resume, in your LinkedIn, on your portfolio, in an interview. That would probably help you stand apart. Susanna says, nice to have you live. Thank you, Susanna. Thanks for joining. I think you're new to the show. Um, Oz says they used captioning at last year's Microsoft MVP Summit. Folks were fixated on watching for its goofs, seeing how it messed up names, used the wrong to. Of course, he's writing the homonyms, to adverb, to preposition, to number, and made just outright blunders. Yeah, I'm sure. Larry says, have you read the latest article on NNG about instructions for mobile apps? Larry, I haven't, so I'm going to Google it. Instructions, mobile apps. I know in general we don't want to put instructions on things because that can be a sign that I tell people, if you are putting on instructions, tooltips, how-tos, FAQs and things like that, then you've built something that might not be intuitive. That being said, sometimes if an app has greatly changed since its last version, a in the moment, just in time, quick thing can be helpful, but normally I tell people, don't put it in the beginning as some sort of onboarding, make it contextual. If you have something new on a certain screen, maybe pop up something on that screen, but make it a first time experience where people only see it that one time. And then from there, hopefully it is now, okay, we told you something you might not have noticed. Now you know it and it's intuitive. We don't have to keep telling you. When I see instructional overlays and coach marks for mobile apps on NNG, this article is from 2014. Is there a newer article you're talking about? Here's another NNG article. No, this is a paid report. Larry, do you mean the article from 2014? Because that's what I'm seeing when I Google for it. And that is my general response to, should we have a lot of instructions and coaching and things like that? And in general, I believe you don't want that because it's a signal to people that you have built something not intuitive. So, Larry, please let me know. I will type it in the chat room because you are many minutes behind over here in LinkedIn. Any other thoughts or questions? Let's see. It posted today. Larry, I'm having trouble finding that. Let's go to just nngroup.com and see if they put like their latest things on the homepage. Mobile tutorials. Oh, okay. This must be what it's just 2 days ago. Mobile tutorials, wasted effort or efficiency boost. All right. Well, let's see what they're talking about. Deck of cards tutorials contain help or tip screens. So that's usually, I think, your onboarding. Methodology, applications, participants, group A, group B, procedures. Let's see what their key findings were. We observed comparable task success rates for the two conditions. Task success across the 4 apps tested was 91%. for those who read the tutorial and 94% for those who skipped the tutorial. Okay. Obviously, that's a little bit better for people who skipped it, but they're saying the difference was not statistically significant, which is fine. And whether people saw the tutorial or not, they completed the task. Let's see, what else? No difference in task completion times. Group A, who read tutorials, completed the task in 93.49 seconds. Group B skipped tutorials, completed the task in 85.17 seconds. They're still saying that difference wasn't significant, but the people who didn't read the tutorials finished the task faster, but they're saying it didn't really matter. Conclusion. Tutorials take time and effort to design and develop, but those would be better spent on making the UI easy to use. Why are we calling it the UI, people? Okay, so it sounds like Nielsen Norman Group is saying that there's no, based on their research, there's no statistical significance if you use what looked like a multiple screen kind of onboarding thing. I do recommend against those. Again, having answered this before I even saw their article, I recommend that we use as few tooltips and tutorials and training and how-tos and FAQs as possible. I like to say FAQs are content without strategy, and I want that on a shirt. So I would say that if you are going to try to teach people something, perhaps with an overlay, then you just do it contextually on the screen where something is so new or has changed so drastically that you feel like giving people a little bit of clue. And Larry says design for requiring no instructions. Totally agree. That's something that I tell people, though I use slightly different wording, but you're totally right. You also wrote, my feeling is instructions are a crutch and indicate that something was designed poorly. Totally agree. I tell people in all of my presentations and workshops that nobody likes to be schooled, and that whenever we include these tooltips and instructions and things like that, they might be a band-aid to try to fix something that's not working, but very often they don't help and they can make it worse. Larry's also saying that task-oriented designs don't require instructions. It looks like Otter has stopped. What happened? Oh, Otter stopped scrolling. Guys, I am so sorry. You missed the last 7 minutes of captions. I apologize. I don't know why Otter stopped scrolling. Hopefully now it is moving. Let's see. Is it moving? Okay. Sorry, everybody. Playing with captions. First test run, and it's been pretty good. And so ultimately, Larry says, design for hey, if you know how to perform the task, you can use the tool. That's right. Larry's right as always. Gosh, Larry, that should be in a book. If you know how to perform the task and someone architected and designed around that task and how you're likely to do it or how you could most efficiently do it, then you don't need help or instructions or a tooltip or a band-aid, because you would just do what felt most natural to you, and it would be designed for that, rather than a design that tries to change your behavior or a design that tries to school you or scold you. We're coming up on an hour. I usually do stop at an hour. So let me know if there are any last questions. Let's see. I don't see any coming in at the moment. We talked about how important UX writing is. Let's see. And always good to have Larry and Plexus here, and Oz and Udit, actually the whole crowd. It's the friends of the show today. I'm so glad you all came by. If there are no questions, Larry is so bad. Oh, I don't know how that'll get captioned. Any last questions before we wind down for the night? You've all watched the sunset on me. I'm now glowing. I'm all pink and glowing. Oh no, we stopped scrolling again. So, last few minutes, any other questions? Thanks to everybody who joined today, both in YouTube and on LinkedIn. Again, please subscribe at our YouTube channel, which you can find by going to deltacx.tv. That will just be a redirect straight to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified when I'm going live, because it sometimes is different times of the day. And here's Oz, and he says, I get the sentiment of not including instructions, but sometimes budget and time prohibit doing things the right way. And yes, adding instructions becomes a band aid. Well, Oz, this is true. And, a lot of times, behind the scenes, we are fighting internally in our companies. There's a way that I want this to look and work. There's a way somebody else wants this to look and work. I've got so many stories about something that I wanted to build a certain way. I got overruled. Somebody else built it the way they wanted. When that finally went out to the public, it tested badly. And when it circled back to me, like, okay, now we have to fix this, there were times where people still didn't want me to do my design. They wanted me to make their bad idea work. And I was like, I can't make your bad idea work. You tried your bad idea and it failed. And we shouldn't have ego at that point. We shouldn't say, yeah, but we still have to use my bad idea. We should drop the ego and be able to say, I probably shouldn't have overruled UX in the first place, but I did, and my idea failed, so maybe I should now let them design what's going to work better. So, yeah, instructions can be a band aid. So and my dog is coming over here to say hi. Olivia, no, Olivia, don't hit the floor, then everyone can't see you. Olivia is down for a belly rub. So we've got a few more minutes. If anybody else has any other questions or comments, I'm happy to take those. Olivia, Susu. No, she's hit the floor again for the belly rub. Okay. Olivia. Any other questions or comments in our last minutes? Oh, captioning. My dog's name is Olivia, not the country of Libya. Oh, captioning. All right. You can name your dog Libya if you want. This dog is Olivia. Hey, any last questions? Otherwise, we will wrap up office hours Ask Me Anything for Tuesday, March 10th, 2020. Just a reminder, you can explore my world further at deltacx.com. Of course, you can buy my book and check out other things we have going on there. Again, as always, you can go to events, live stream podcasts, and check out the Google calendar for what's coming up next. Oz has a question. Oz has a question for you. Is Italy a cigar-friendly country? Do a lot of people smoke cigars? Are there cigar shops? Boyfriend says not very mainstream. Oh, are they heavily taxed? Is the same tax as everything? Same 22%? Yeah, everything here is 22% tax, Oz. Small Italian cigars. Okay. Google Toscanello. That sounds like it's spelled Toscanello. Okay. Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answers that for Oz. And Yanira, who is new to our show, says, "Hi, Debbie. Which resources do you recommend for learning UX the right way? Thanks for your time." Yanira, I don't have a great answer for that right now because there is a lot of bad UX education out there. I'm not happy with the boot camps. I'm not happy with the trade schools. I'm not even happy with most bachelor's and master's programs. And as I said at the beginning of the show, neither is Don Norman, who is considered in some ways, the godfather of UX. So I don't have a great way to tell people, hey, you want to learn UX, you read this book, take this course, go to this school. Right now, unfortunately, it's all really garbage. I think the best way until all of this dust settles, and maybe even after, would be private coaching. Like, honestly, when I think about the thousands of dollars people are spending going to these boot camps, some of these boot camps are $8,000, $14,000, $17,000, and the extremely bizarre Lambda School is $30,000. And at the end of it, you're still not job ready, though you have a certificate. Congratulations. I feel like, what if everybody took that same money and hired a private coach? What if you hired a me or somebody like me, and I was going to spend X hours a week with you, one on one, over Zoom like this, private, not broadcasted, and I'm going to teach you what I can, and you're going to work on a sample project, or maybe you have a real project at your job or agency, and I'm going to help and oversee that. I think that the number one thing that people new to UX or transitioning into UX need is some sort of great mentor or coach. And as for word definitions, I see a mentor as someone who gives you help for free, and I see a coach as someone who gives you help but is paid. And I otherwise don't think there's a difference between the two. You can get low quality from both those people, and you can get high quality from both those people. So I wonder, what would it be like if people who spent $17,000 on a certificate and still can't find that job and still don't know how to do UX and still have portfolios that show that they don't know how to do UX and tell that unfortunate story? What if they had thrown $5,000 at someone like me, and we have X hours a week for a certain number of weeks, and okay, maybe you do or don't get a certificate at the end. Maybe it's the Delta CX certificate with my cute little circles on it. But ultimately, what we learned when we did the podcast, What Hiring Managers Think of Boot Camps, is that ultimately not many hiring managers are looking at what certificate you have from where or what degree you have from where. Some of them care about degrees, many of them don't. They're looking at that portfolio to see if it tells the story that you can do the work. If you can do the work because of great self study, okay, though that's probably rare. If you can do the work because you went to a great boot camp, okay, though that seems to be rare. If you can do great work because you had a great coach and that person walked you through a lot of stuff and gave you a lot of great feedback on your work, and you were able to cycle and keep working on that stuff until you really understood the material and had something good cooking, I think ultimately hiring managers right now want to see people and portfolios that show, I understand UX, I understand the depth, the quality, the psychology side of it, the scientific nature of it, and I'm ready to hit the ground running and do real work. And then I usually suggest that people continue with the coaching with me when they get that job, because sometimes jobs aren't set up to give people mentoring or feedback, and so you would still have that mentor or coach who can help you. It's not cheap, but it would be less than what trade schools are charging, and I believe it would be a much more direct way to be learning from uh, hopefully an expert, because I find that many of these boot camps and trade schools aren't even having things taught by experts. Someone told me that their cohort was getting a new instructor in the coming days, and I looked at that instructor's LinkedIn, and it was all visual design and front end development, but they're going to be the UX instructor. Well, they're absolutely qualified to teach visual design and front end development from what I saw on their LinkedIn, but I didn't see anything that made me think they were qualified to teach UX. So uh, so Oz says something, and I've got to tell him yes and no. Oz says you can't get student loans to hire a coach. Now, I did some research on this, of course, and I found that there are some surprising options. So, first of all, you could get a personal loan and tell the bank that you're doing it to get private education. You could not get a federal loan. But of course, you can't even get a federal loan from boot camps because many boot camps are not in the accredited system where you can get a federal loan. You could get a personal loan for that. I also found that if I wanted to, I could bill you much later. I could say, hey, you agree to pay me X dollars for a certain amount of coaching or time that we're spending together. But you know what? I'm going to bill you in 6 months. I'm going to bill you in a year. There's always a way to think about a deferred payment plan. Um, for people who are having trouble getting that loan or coming up with the money. Yanira says, I agree completely. Thank you so much, Debbie. I bought your book. That's my starting point. Well, thank you. I'll definitely keep your coaching idea in mind. I think it's important. And again, if you can find it for free, that's great. But I know that a lot of people who are veterans and experts in UX, they do love to mentor, but they can't always make time for all of the mentoring clients, for lack of a better word, who would love to have their time. And again, as I was saying earlier in the broadcast, I get people usually once a week or more who write to me and say, oh, I just want a half hour of your time to show you my work, or oh, I just need some help with my resume. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm an expert. I'm an expert coach. You paid for yoga class, you paid for tennis lessons, you paid for piano lessons. Not everything's going to be free. So that's my thought on that. I think one thing that's going to rise up a little bit in the next year or two is more workshops that are taught by experts and more one-on-one coaching with experts. I think that's gonna be strong for the next year or two. But that's just a prediction, and it's wishful thinking. I would love to be coaching more people. So we are over in time. I don't want to make you guys hang out any later than you have to. It's a school day. But remember, stay home as much as possible. Please stay home. Be careful. Don't get overconfident. That's been happening here in Italy. People were told, don't travel, don't do this. They did it anyway. Then we have an increase in virus cases. I know for some it just sounds like a bad flu. Obviously, for other people, it's much more frightening and life threatening, and we have to consider those people. We can't just be selfish and go, well, no, I get the flu. It's not so bad. What about everybody else? What about the people that you are putting at risk, possibly exposing whatever you're carrying to all of these people who might not have the same level of health or resilience that you feel that you have? So please, if you're not going to stay home because you're too cool, stay home for all of the grandmas and the people with compromised systems and all that out there. Sorry to be preachy for a moment, but now I live in Italy, and now we're on countrywide lockdown for a month. What's the success criteria of that? How will they know when that has worked? And my boyfriend was telling me even today, everyone was still hanging out at the neighborhood bar. Wrong. You're supposed to not leave your house as much as possible. Maybe you have to go and get some food at the village grocery store, but like you're not supposed to leave your house at all, so stop hanging out at the bar. So I think that many people just aren't taking this seriously enough, and they're not considering those around them. The grandpas and the babies and the disabled and people with diseases and people who catch things easily. I mean, it's a long list. It's a long list of people who have a lot more to worry about than maybe you do. All right, I'll stop preaching. It's coronavirus month, everybody. I might say something again because I'm in Italy and we're on lockdown. So, Yanira, great to meet you. Everybody else, great to see you. Jason, thanks for joining in. It was good to meet you. Plexus, always happy to see you and Larry here. And Oz, friend of the show, always happy when you show up. Join us tomorrow for improv comedy as we get ridiculous to talk about. Oz says, "Boo, I'm calling the police on y'all." I wonder if the caption thing can write y'all. Oh, it did. Very good. Very good, Otter. Thanks to the people at Otter for the captioning. I'll probably be paying for that. There's a bug flying in front of me. And I'm going to stop the stream, but I hope to see you guys tomorrow at Live Improv Comedy, 6:30 p.m. Italy time. And then Thursday, I think 7 p.m. Italy time is going to be um, speed dating, where we're going to meet 10 or so UX people looking for a job and get to know them. Sarah. Oh, Sarah, you're here. Thanks for joining. Yes. Sorry, you're here at the very end. You'll have to watch the archive on YouTube. I am safe. I feel safe. I'm comfortable. I'm not in a bad situation. Luckily, I live in the countryside on a small piece of land, and so I'm not stuck in a small apartment. So stay home to me means hang out around the house and run around the yard with the dogs. So I'll probably be okay, but I worry about everybody else. So everybody else, please stay safe and see you all online again very soon. Have a great day.